Hey everyone, welcome back to Reading with Tatiana. Today I'm reviewing The Love That Split the World by Emily Henry, and I gave this book a 3 out of 5. My Booktuber Shoutout today goes out to Kizzy Reads. I came across her channel when I was looking up other book reviews on The Love That Split the World because I wanted to see what other people thought of this book as well. She posted a review 7 years ago when this book came out, and she has consistently been uploading on her channel, so please show Kizzy Reads some support. I'll link her channel down below. And as always, before I go into my full book review, if you're watching this video, please hit the subscribe button, give this video a thumbs up, and if you've read any of Emily Henry's book, including this one or her contemporary romances, I'd love to hear your comments down below. This book was published back in 2016. It was actually Emily Henry's debut novel, and it's a young adult fiction. I guess I would put it as like contemporary romance, but I guess I feel like it's more of like magic realism, a bit of fantasy, a bit of time travel, a bit of indigenous folklore. This book was actually really surprising to me because I'm familiar with Emily Henry because of her book Lovers, and I've always wanted to read her book like Beach Read and her new one that just came out too. But this book was definitely like a totally different genre. A bit about the author Emily Henry. So she lives in Cincinnati and Kentucky in America. She's an American author, and she studied creative writing at Hope College. She's a full-time writer and also a proofreader. And her debut novel, like I mentioned before, is this novel, The Love That Split the World, which is young adults, I guess, like contemporary romance, magic realism, like I said, a bit of fantasy. But since then, she has more delved into adult fiction, contemporary romance, which is how I know her. I've read her book Lovers, and then her really popular ones are also Beach Read. Her other book just came out like literally a few months ago called The Happy Place. I will give one thing for her team is she has great titles for her book that really capture you, and also like great cover art for her books. So whatever she's doing, it's working really well. Let's get into the premise of the book. So the book starts with we meeting Natalie Clearly, and she is her final year of high school, and she gets a visit at nighttime when she's sleeping from this like being that she calls like grandma, but we don't know if it's God or like whoever. And basically, she gets these visits from this grandma from her childhood and up until 3 years ago, and then she stopped getting these like visions. And then right now in present day when the book starts, she meets grandma again, and grandma kind of gives her like this warning, like you have 3 months to save him. It's very ominous, and Natalie has no idea what that means. But grandma does tell her that if you find Alice Chan, she can help you. So right away, this book starts like what's going on, what's the premise, and we find out as grandma leaves that Natalie has to find this Alice Chan person, who ends up being like a researcher at like this university, and Alice Chan has some experience with people who have visions like Natalie. And then also we find that Natalie is in final year of high school. She used to be on the dance team. She used to be kind of in the popular group, and she used to also date this boy called Matthew. And she kind of had a 180 switch, and she wants to get out of the small town that she lives in to Brown University. So Natalie's kind of this like crossroads in her life. She's kind of like caught between two worlds and two I guess personalities she wants to be in her final year of high school. And then she kind of goes through the emotions of going to these parties, going to these football games. But then after her grandma's visit and that warning of you have to save him in 3 months, Natalie starts seeing like these glitches in her real life. So for example, at the football game, she sees like the football game happening, and then the players will glitch out, and then she'll see like one boy there. And this one boy, she has like a draw too. So her and this boy Bo, Weekes, they meet up and basically have this connection with each other. And like minor spoiler, they find that they are actually part of two different worlds that are happening in the same place. So kind of like the idea of parallel universes. So that's kind of like where the book kind of like jumps off. I'm gonna stop there because I don't want to do any more spoilers. But it's super interesting because you kind of meet Natalie, you meet Bo. You're drawn to each other. They're living at the same timeline of the same. Sorry, they're living at the same world location at the same time, but in the past, at some point, the world had split, and they don't know when or why. So it's super interesting, and it's kind of like a fever dream when you read this book. common themes I found in this book. So the first one has to do with our protagonist Natalie. She is born indigenous, however she is adopted by a white family. So a very common theme that Natalie struggled through in this book is the idea of identity and what it means to belong and what it means to not feel included and what it means to have a chosen family. These are all very important themes that were very prevalent for the whole book. I think as a young adult's book that's really great to read because I think a lot of people, whether they're indigenous or not, really struggle with the idea of identity and belonging with their family and friends throughout their formative years. So I really enjoyed that aspect of these common themes throughout the book. Other important one is the idea of sacrifice. When you love someone, what do you do to sacrifice something for them? How much is too much, or is it never enough? And that is a really interesting idea that this book talks about. And another common one is, a common theme is that because the grandma, she is this mysterious woman that we don't know where she's from, and she gives Natalie all these stories and all these warnings. The common theme of the importance of passing down stories from generation to generation, and specifically in this book, the idea of folklore being passed down, and I really enjoyed that. I gave this book a 3 out of 5, so there are obviously a few things I don't like about this book. The first thing was the idea, so as I touched on before, Bo and Natalie are from different worlds, but at the same place, at the same time, but it's parallel universes. So they're able to pass through between each other's worlds, but the book doesn't really clearly explain how they're able to control it or why. So for me, it just seems so convenient that it happened when it does to drive the plot. But when you do something that's kind of like time travel or passing between worlds, in a standalone novel, it can be hard to explain, so it just wasn't executed really well. It just seemed that the author just did it for convenience, and that was kind of annoying to read. I also didn't really get the draw to Bo and Natalie, the draw that Bo and Natalie had to each other at first, but as you read the book, it does make more sense. But I think, me as a pessimist when it comes to romance, if you've watched my reviews, I just didn't believe it for the longest time, so that was kind of like a pet peeve of mine too. However, things I did like was I enjoyed that the book felt like a fever dream. You couldn't predict where things would go and what would happen next. I really enjoyed that. It kept me on my toes. I also love all the folklore and all the stories that the grandma told Natalie throughout the book. And the emphasis on how you actually know how the book's going to end right at the beginning, but you just have to not overthink it. And all of grandma's stories can give you a clue, but it's just given metaphors and stories. So I really enjoyed that. On Goodreads, this book on average a 3.61 out of 5, which I think is very accurate because the book has been out now for 7 years. So bad reviews where people thought similar to me, too many plot holes. They didn't make sense for some of the motivations of the characters. For example, Alice Chan, who's a researcher at university, why was she motivated to help Natalie? And why was she why was she also overanalyzing Natalie as well? So that was interesting. People also thought the plotline with the ex-Matt was totally pointless. Good reviews were people love the world that the author created. People also love the idea of love in this book. What it means to love, what it means to be loved, the idea of family love, friend love, and romantic love. And people also love how this book was just weird. Why I think you should read this book? I think you should read this book if you love the idea of parallel universes, the idea of if you could change things, would you? And this fever dream kind of book. Now I'll share how this book made me feel, because when people recommend me a book, I always like to ask them how it made them feel. Because if you ask me a week, a year, 5 years from now, I probably won't remember exactly what book was about, but remember exactly what the book made me feel. I feel like I'm really stumbling my words today, so I'm sorry, it's just words are hard today. So this book, it made me feel very nostalgic for my youth. I can't name any books right now off the top of my head, but the way the book made me feel and the way it was written made me remind me of books I read when I was very young and just getting lost in this world that's very whimsical and just kind of going with the flow. It was a very enjoyable book and it's very lovely. Thank you for watching to the end of my book review for The Love That Split the World by Emily Henry. If you've read this book, I'd love to hear your comments down below. If you're watching until the end, as always, please hit the subscribe button, give this video a thumbs up, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.